Ma'am, I don't have a mom. Could you be my mom for one day? The words trembled in the winter air, soft but piercing, spoken with a mixture of innocence and heartbreak that didn't belong in a voice so young. Victoria Sterling blinked, pulled abruptly from the glow of her phone screen and the heavy quiet inside her chest. The cold air bit at her cheeks. She looked down. A small girl no more than 5 stood there in a threadbare brown coat, her cheeks flushed pink from the cold. She clutched a worn teddy bear with one ear barely hanging on. Her eyes, deep brown and shimmering with the last remnants of tears, looked up into Victoria's face with a fragile kind of hope. Just a few minutes earlier, across the same snow-dusted park, Maya Williams had been sitting at the edge of the playground. Her classmates were gathered near the jungle gym, bundled up in colorful jackets, laughing as they clung to their mother's hands or tugged on their coats for snacks and attention. Maya had stood quietly beside them, watching. "Why don't you ever bring your mom?" one of the girls had asked with a smug twist to her voice. "Yeah," chimed in another. "You always say she's in heaven. That just means you made her up. She probably ran away," a boy snickered. "Like in those TV shows." Maya had tried to speak, to say something back, but the lump in her throat was too big. Her hands clenched tighter around Mr. Bean's, her beloved bear. She turned and ran, tears streaming down her face, her boots crunching against the icy path. She ran past the playground, past the park benches where mothers poured hot cocoa from thermoses, past the nannies pushing strollers. She kept going until the voices were behind her. Then she saw the woman, sitting alone on a snow-dusted bench, perfectly dressed in a cream wool coat and beige scarf, staring blankly at her phone. Her blonde hair was styled to perfection, but her posture spoke of weariness, and her eyes, though Maya was still too far to see them, clearly looked like the saddest eyes in the park. Something inside Maya stirred. She slowed down, watched, waited. No one sat with the woman. No one hugged her. No one called her name. She looked like the grown-up version of how Maya felt inside. So Maya walked toward her, and when she reached the bench, she stood quietly, shivering slightly, then gathered the last of her courage. "Ma'am," she said, her voice cracking, "I don't have a mom. Could you be my mom for one day?" Victoria looked down, stunned. The child's words reached somewhere deep, beneath the surface, beneath the steel and polish she wore like armor every day. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," she said gently. "What did you say?" Maya stepped closer, her voice soft and steady despite the tremble in her lips. "I don't have a mom. She's in heaven. Daddy says she's still with me, but I can't see her, and I want to do mom stuff, just for one day." Victoria's throat tightened. Victoria had been many things in her short but ferociously driven life: an Ivy League graduate, a self-made billionaire, a woman featured on Forbes covers before 30, but in that moment, none of it seemed to matter. The weight of this tiny stranger's loneliness reached inside her and gripped something she hadn't touched in years. She glanced around the park. The families, the strollers, the thermoses of cocoa. The very life she had intentionally chosen to avoid: relationships, attachments, all too complicated, too demanding. But this little girl was different. "What's your name?" Victoria asked softly. "Maya Williams," she said, hugging Mr. Beans to her chest. "And this is Mr. Beans. He's kinda old now, like, tired." Victoria smiled faintly. "He looks like he's been through a lot." "Yeah," Maya nodded. "Like my daddy." A gust of wind kicked up, and Maya shivered. Instinctively, Victoria stood, took off her coat, and wrapped it around the small girl. "Oh no, I'm okay," Maya said politely. "Just for now," Victoria replied. "Until we talk to your dad, okay?" Maya's eyes widened. "You'll really ask him?" "I'll ask him." Maya beamed through her chapped lips. "You're really pretty, like a princess, but you look kinda sad too." Victoria blinked. "Sad?" Maya nodded solemnly. "You look like my daddy does when he thinks I'm not watching. Like your face forgot how to smile." Victoria swallowed hard. She took Maya's hand, small, warm, and trusting, and together they walked across the snow-covered path. They reached a nearby bench where a man, mid-conversation on his cell phone, was clearly juggling work stress and weather discomfort. He wore a thick charcoal coat, eyes tired, his free hand raking through tightly curled hair. As Maya tugged Victoria closer, the man ended the call, concern flickering across his features. Maya, baby, we talked about this, you can't wander off. His voice was firm but loving. I didn't wander, Maya said seriously. I found someone. This is Victoria. She's nice. She's sad like us. And I asked her a really big thing. Victoria stepped forward. Mr. Williams? I'm Victoria Sterling. Maya came to speak with me. She said something that touched me deeply. He looked wary but curious. What kind of something? She asked if I could be her mom, for one day, to do girl things. Victoria's voice cracked slightly. Marcus Williams froze, his shoulders tensed. Maya, honey, you can't just ask. She's not a stranger. Maya interrupted. She's Victoria. And she smiled when I asked. Not fake. Smiled. Real smiled. Please, Daddy. She's the first person today who made me feel okay. He looked at his daughter, then at Victoria. Victoria met his eyes. I know it sounds strange, but I think I need this as much as she does. He studied her. Not the coat or the face from magazine covers, but the expression. Honest. Raw. After a moment, he exhaled slowly. I'm Marcus. Marcus Williams. Victoria reached out. Nice to meet you. You're serious? He asked. Why would someone like you do this? Victoria's answer came low and steady. Because I'm tired of being alone. Because today is my birthday. And I've never felt more invisible. And because your daughter looked at me like I still mattered. He nodded, slowly. One day. We'll try. But we go at Maya's pace. I wouldn't have it any other way. Maya squealed, hugging Victoria's legs tight. You said yes. Victoria knelt down, her voice shaky. I said yes. And for the first time in years, she meant it. If this story touched your heart, give it a like and tell us where you're watching from. You might not be alone tonight. Marcus Williams stood still for a long moment, his arms crossed against the cold, watching Victoria kneeling beside his daughter. Maya was practically buzzing with excitement, her little fingers gripping the woman's hand like she'd known her for years. And maybe, in some ways, she had. Children had a strange way of seeing straight through the exterior to what mattered. He cleared his throat. Let's walk, he said, gesturing toward a quieter path lined with skeletal trees. If you're serious about this, we should talk properly. Victoria rose and nodded, still holding Maya's hand. They began walking side by side, the crunch of snow beneath their feet filling the silence. I want to be up front, Marcus began, glancing at her. I'm a single dad. I work a full-time job, manage the house, make every school run, every doctor's appointment, every tantrum and bedtime story. Maya is my world, and I don't let just anyone into her life. I wouldn't expect you to, Victoria said calmly. He looked at her again, studying her face. She looked young, beautiful, yes, but with an edge of exhaustion beneath her eyes that mirrored his own. He'd seen her name before. On billboards, magazines, Sterling Technologies, tech visionary, one of the richest women in America before 30. You're Victoria Sterling, he said flatly. I didn't realize it at first, but yeah, now I do. Yes, you've got an empire. I do. And you want to spend your Saturday playing dress-up with a 5-year-old? Her smile was small but genuine. If she'll let me. Maya swung Victoria's hand playfully between them. We could paint nails. And make pancakes? And maybe watch cartoons? Marcus snorted. That's an ambitious schedule, sweetheart. I'll make time, Victoria said, without hesitation. They reached a bench near the edge of the pond where the ducks huddled together on a patch of ice. Marcus gestured for them to sit. Victoria settled with Maya still clinging to her arm like a teddy bear. He took a deep breath. Maya's mother died 3 years ago. Breast cancer. It was quick and brutal. 1 month we were taking family photos, and the next, he swallowed. Everything changed. I'm so sorry, Victoria said, voice soft. She was the glue, he continued. I work in software development, back-end systems. I'm good at coding, at managing teams. But French braids and lullabies? He shook his head. I've tried. God knows I've tried. You've kept her safe. Loved her, Victoria said. That counts for more than you think." He looked at her, surprised by the sincerity in her voice. "She misses her mom," he said quietly. "But she doesn't talk about it much. She used to ask every night when her mom was coming back. Now she just hugs that bear like it can answer her." Victoria glanced at Mr. Beans, now nestled in Maya's lap, one fuzzy paw resting on her coat. "She's bright," Victoria said. "Perceptive." Marcus nodded. Too much for her age, like she was forced to grow up faster just to survive. They sat in silence for a moment. Maya leaned her head against Victoria's shoulder, and Victoria instinctively wrapped an arm around her. Marcus watched them, something tugging in his chest that he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope was dangerous. Trust, even more so. "I'm not looking for charity," he said firmly, "and I don't want her to think this is some kind of temporary fairy tale." "I'm not offering charity," Victoria said, "and I'm not looking for a photo op or a headline." He arched a brow. "Then what are you looking for?" She was quiet, then said, "I've built a life surrounded by people who only need me for what I can do, not who I am. I don't even know who I am outside of boardrooms and deadlines." Maya looked at me today and saw something I didn't know was still there. Marcus studied her face. She wasn't acting. She wasn't marketing. She was tired, raw. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "All right, here's what I'm willing to do. We try it. One day, you take her for a Saturday. I'll vet everything. Locations, times, even send a GPS tracker if needed." Victoria didn't flinch. "Deal." "She's never had anyone outside family take this kind of interest in her," he added. "If you start this, and you change your mind later." "I won't," Victoria cut in, her voice steady. "I don't make promises lightly." Maya looked up. "Does that mean I can go with her? Really?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Yeah, baby. One day. But I expect a full report when you get home." Maya's joy exploded in a squeal. "We're gonna have the best day ever." Victoria laughed an unguarded, real laugh, and Marcus felt a strange pull in his chest, like something settling. He stood. "Let's exchange numbers." They swapped phones, entered contact information. Marcus added notes, emergency numbers, and allergies. Victoria promised to send an itinerary by the next day. Before they parted, Victoria knelt again, to Maya's eye level. "I'll see you Saturday, bright and early." Maya nodded so fast her curls bounced. "I'll be ready." As they turned to walk in opposite directions, Marcus glanced back once. He saw Victoria looking at her phone not to check emails, but to stare at the new contact she'd just saved. He couldn't hear her thoughts, but he could see something shift in her face. Later that night, he'd lie in bed and ask himself why he agreed. He didn't fully trust her. Not yet. But somehow, Maya had. And sometimes, children knew the truth before adults did. That evening, Victoria sat at her sleek penthouse kitchen counter, untouched glass of wine beside her. She held her phone in both hands, staring at the text she was about to send. To Marcus Williams. "Would it be all right if I brought her a book? Something about stars. She said she likes the sky." She hit send, then sat in silence, waiting for a reply. It came less than a minute later. "Marcus. She loves the stars. She says her mom became one." Victoria closed her eyes. Yes, this mattered. The door to the modest apartment swung open at exactly 9 a.m., and there she stood. Victoria Sterling, billionaire, media mogul, and for one day, mom. She wore a soft gray wool coat over a light blue sweater and dark jeans, nothing like the tailored suits and luxury heels she was usually seen in. Her blonde hair was tied in a low ponytail, and in her gloved hands, she held a small brown paper bag and a thin, gift-wrapped book. "Good morning," she said, trying not to sound nervous. Marcus appeared behind the doorframe, still tugging a watch over his wrist. "You're punctual." "I said 9, she replied with a faint smile. Inside, Maya was already jumping up and down in the hallway, wearing her little brown coat and hugging Mr. Beans like he was going to Disney World. "You came," she squealed. "Of course I did," Victoria said, crouching to meet her at eye level. "I promised, didn't I?" Marcus opened the door wider to let her in. The apartment was small but neat, filled with warmth. A few framed photos hung above a modest couch, wedding pictures, a baby Maya, and a smiling woman with soulful eyes. Victoria hesitated in the entryway. The smell of pancakes lingered in the air. Maya helped with breakfast, Marcus said. Pancake hearts. We made too many. Want some? Victoria smiled. I'd love a few if it's all right. They moved into the kitchen, where the table was set simply. 3 plates, a small jug of syrup, a bowl of strawberries. Maya climbed into her seat like it was a throne. I helped stir and didn't even spill this time. She only got flour on the dog, Marcus said. We don't have a dog, Maya giggled. Exactly, he muttered. Victoria sat down, laughing. For a moment, it felt strangely natural. Easy. She pulled out the book from the bag hardcover, deep blue with silver stars on the jacket. I brought something for later. It's about a girl who builds a spaceship in her backyard to visit the stars. Maya's eyes lit up. Like my mom? Victoria looked to Marcus, unsure. He nodded. Daddy says Mama became a star. She watches me from the sky. That's why I always wave at bedtime. Victoria's throat tightened. That sounds beautiful. Maya nodded seriously. She was. And she liked books with stars, too. They finished breakfast in warm conversation. Marcus cleared the plates, while Victoria helped Maya zip her coat. You good? He asked his daughter gently. I'm perfect, she said, clinging to Mr. Bean's and Victoria's hand at the same time. Marcus handed Victoria a folded note. My number, and a list of allergies, emergency contacts, just in case. She nodded, tucking it into her coat pocket. We'll stay in the city. Children's museum, maybe a cafe. I'll text updates. He glanced between them, protective but resigned. She hasn't smiled like this in months. Victoria looked down at Maya, who was beaming. Neither have I. Outside, the winter morning was crisp and bright. Snow from the previous storm had mostly melted, leaving behind slushy sidewalks and breath clouds in the air. Maya chatted nonstop as they walked. Do you like dinosaurs? I like Triceratops the best. They look like they're always ready to fight but also kinda sad. Zero. I think I'm more of a Stegosaurus fan, Victoria replied. They look like they need hugs but are too spiky to ask for them. Maya laughed so hard she had to stop walking. That's a funny way to say it. The museum was bustling with weekend families. Victoria purchased tickets and led Maya through the halls filled with exhibits. They watched a puppet show, made paper rockets, and stood under a giant whale hanging from the ceiling. At the space section, Maya pointed up. She's probably near that one, she said, gazing at a bright model of the Orion constellation. Your mom? Maya nodded. Sometimes I talk to her, but not out loud. Just in my head. I think she hears me anyway. Victoria knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. I think so too. They stayed there a while longer. And for the first time in a long while, Victoria didn't feel the pull of time, the itch to check her phone, the invisible weight of expectation. She was just there. With Maya, after lunch at a nearby cafe, grilled cheese for Maya, roasted tomato soup for Victoria, they went to a bookstore nearby. Maya picked out a sticker book and a pack of glitter pens. Can I draw you something later? She asked. I'd love that, Victoria said. Maybe you can teach me how to draw stars. Maya leaned close and whispered, They're easy. You just draw a wish. By late afternoon, the sun was dipping behind the buildings. Victoria felt a surprising sense of dread about the time slipping away. Back at the apartment, Marcus opened the door as soon as he heard the footsteps. Maya ran in first, cheeks red from the cold. Daddy, we saw a giant whale and I ate a sandwich bigger than my face and I'm gonna draw a wish star for Miss Victoria. Marcus smiled, visibly relieved. Sounds like a full day. Victoria lingered at the doorway, unsure how to leave. Thank you for trusting me, she said. He nodded. Thank you for bringing her back this happy. Maya appeared beside her. Will you come back next Saturday? Victoria knelt. If it's okay with your dad, I'd really like that. Maya looked up at Marcus with pleading eyes. He took a deep breath. Let's talk about it. Victoria smiled. I'll wait for your call. That night, back in her penthouse, Victoria placed the glitter drawing Maya had made 5 stars, a crooked heart, and the words, My Star Mama, on her fridge. She stared at it for a long time, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel so alone. Monday came heavy. Victoria Sterling sat at the head of a long, polished oak table in the 28th floor boardroom of Sterling Technologies' Manhattan headquarters. The skyline stretched endlessly beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, glittering in cold January sunlight. Around her sat men and women in sharp suits, eyes fixed on charts and numbers projected on a large screen. "Und, we've exceeded Q4 projections by 12%, her CFO was saying. "If we redirect surplus into international licensing—" "Hold that," Victoria said, her voice calm but absolute. The room paused. Silence fell like a curtain. Victoria leaned back slightly, her fingers steepled. "What are we doing with that surplus here? In the city? In the neighborhoods where we operate?" There was an awkward shifting of papers. "Well," a VP began, "community investments are currently allocated at less than 2%. Standard practice. Maybe standard isn't good enough anymore," she said quietly. It wasn't just about charts anymore. Not after Maya. "Rework the allocation," she added. 10% to community tech access, school initiatives, and family wellness. Start with Harlem and South Bronx. Report by end of month. There were startled glances around the table. Victoria Sterling was known for precision, brilliance, strategy, but rarely sentiment. She wasn't sure if it was sentiment now. Maybe it was clarity. As the meeting adjourned, her assistant, Janelle, sharp-eyed, efficient, and discreet, followed her into the private elevator. "Not that I'm complaining," Janelle said, checking her tablet. "But that shift in budget strategy, was that planned?" "No," Victoria replied. "But it's right." Janelle gave a slight, approving nod. "Noted." May. They reached the executive suite. The glass office, spare, modern, sterile, had never felt more like a showroom for someone else's life. Victoria sank into the leather chair behind her desk, her gaze falling on the drawing taped to her monitor. 5 stars, and "My Star Mama," written in glitter pen. She smiled. A notification buzzed on her phone. It was from Marcus. "Marcus, Maya wants to know if Saturday's still happening. She's already picked out what she wants to wear. Purple sweater with stars. Non-negotiable." Victoria's fingers hovered over the keys before she replied. "Victoria, wouldn't miss it for the world. Tell her I'll wear something that matches." Another buzz. "Marcus, she says you have to wear sparkles." Victoria laughed aloud, startling Janelle, who popped her head in. "You okay, boss?" Victoria nodded. "Yeah. Just remembering something important." That evening, she sat alone in her penthouse, a steaming cup of chamomile tea in one hand and a legal brief in the other. But her thoughts were 1,000 miles away from mergers and compliance clauses. They were back in the Children's Museum, back in the cafe where Maya had licked grilled cheese crumbs off her fingers with zero shame and maximum joy, back in that soft moment under the planetarium dome when Maya whispered, "That one's my mama's star. It twinkles the most when I sing." Oh, Victoria hadn't known it was possible to feel so full and so hollow at the same time. Her phone buzzed again, this time a text from someone she hadn't spoken to in over a year. "Happy birthday. Hope you finally let someone in. Daniel." She stared at the message for a long moment, her thumb poised over the delete button. Then she simply locked the screen and set the phone face down. She didn't need someone from the past reminding her how alone she used to be. She had Maya now, and maybe slowly Marcus. Saturday came faster than expected. Victoria arrived again at 9 sharp, this time wearing a soft lavender sweater with tiny silver studs and comfortable boots. She held a sparkly headband in one hand and a cup of cocoa in the other. Maya opened the door this time, already beaming. "You wore sparkles." "I follow orders," Victoria said. "Commander Maya requested sparkle uniform." I complied. Marcus was behind her, holding a small backpack. "Packed some snacks and an extra sweater. Weather says snow later." "Thank you," Victoria said, and their eyes met in a moment that lingered longer than expected. They went to the planetarium that day. Maya was enraptured by the constellations, dragging Victoria from one exhibit to the next. At one point, Maya reached up and took Victoria's hand without asking. Victoria looked down, startled for half a second, then closed her fingers gently around the small hand that seemed to trust her more than she trusted herself. At the Build-Your-Own solar system station, Maya carefully arranged foam planets on a board. "This is the sun," she said, tapping the yellow ball. "And this is me." She pointed to Earth. "And where's me?" Victoria asked playfully. Maya thought, then placed a star sticker right beside the Sunday. "You're here," close to warm things. Nah. Victoria swallowed the lump in her throat. I like it there. They ate lunch in the museum cafe. Mac and cheese for Maya. A salad Victoria barely touched. Do you like being rich? Maya asked, totally unfiltered. Victoria blinked. That's a big question. I just wonder if it makes you happy. Victoria considered. It makes life easier. But no, not always happy. Did you ever want to be a mom? Victoria paused. That wasn't the kind of question she usually got from Wall Street analysts. I don't know, she said truthfully. I guess I was too busy being important to think about being someone's person. Maya nodded seriously. I think you're my person, even just for Saturdays. Victoria felt something shift in her chest, an anchor loosening, a tether reaching. Back at the apartment, as Maya recited facts about Saturn's rings and tried to explain black holes, Marcus leaned against the doorframe. She's been talking about you all week, he said. She wrote your name on her crayon box at school. Victoria smiled. I hope that's okay. Marcus looked at her, then passed her to the future neither of them had dared to imagine yet. It is, he said softly. As Victoria turned to leave, Maya ran up and hugged her leg. See you next Saturday? Victoria didn't hesitate. Every Saturday you want me. That night, Victoria lay in bed staring at her ceiling, the city lights casting soft shadows overhead. She'd signed deals worth hundreds of millions. But none had ever felt as weighty or as precious as the promise she'd just made to a little girl with a star-covered sweater. It had become a rhythm, subtle but grounding. Saturday mornings now began not with boardroom schedules or client calls, but with sparkly headbands, tiny gloved hands, and the scent of cinnamon pancakes clinging to her coat long after she left the Williams apartment. Victoria Sterling, billionaire, tech visionary, and until recently, emotional recluse, had begun to anchor herself in the most unexpected way. Through Maya Williams and her world of crayons, planet stickers, and memory-laced teddy bears. Now, 3 Saturdays in, Victoria stood at the kitchen counter of the modest Harlem apartment, watching Marcus stir a pot of spaghetti sauce as Maya arranged napkins meticulously at the table. She likes things a certain way, Marcus said over his shoulder. Symmetrical napkins, forks all turned the same direction. Her mom was like that too. I noticed, Victoria said with a soft smile. She arranged our museum snack packs by color. Marcus chuckled. She tried organizing my sock drawer once, claimed it was a community emergency. Maya piped up from the table. Daddy still mixes up blue and black socks. That's why we need systems. Victoria laughed aloud. The sound, once foreign to her own ears, was beginning to feel like home. Dinner's almost ready, Marcus said. Hope you like comfort food. Spaghetti's the only thing I can make without Googling every step. Dad. Spaghetti is sacred, Victoria said, taking a seat as Maya motioned for her to sit beside her. What's the occasion? Maya leaned in conspiratorially. You've never had dinner with us, so I asked Daddy to make it special. Marcus set a bowl of salad and the pot of pasta on the table. And by special, she means no TV, no phones, and real napkins. Victoria raised an eyebrow. Strict house. Small house, big rules, he replied with a smirk. They ate together, passing bowls and trading stories. Maya talked about school, how her music teacher said she had perfect pitch, how she was going to write a song about stars and gummy bears. Victoria asked her about the lyrics, writing down a few lines on a napkin, to Maya's delight. Marcus mostly listened, watching the two of them with cautious curiosity. But as the meal wore on, his shoulders loosened. His smile returned more easily. At one point, Maya dropped her fork, and before either adult could reach it, she'd slid under the table to retrieve it. From under there, her small voice floated up. Miss Victoria? Yes, sweetheart? You ever eat dinner like this when you were little? Victoria blinked. Her instinct was to dodge, keep it surface. But something about the warmth in the room, the trust in Maya's voice, made her answer honestly. No, she said softly. Not really. My parents were busy. Important. Dinners were often formal or skipped. I had a lot of nannies. But I don't remember many meals with them. Definitely not ones with silly socks and songs about gummy bears. Maya reappeared, crawling back into her seat. I like this better. Victoria met Marcus's gaze across the table. He was watching her, not judging, not prying. Just seeing her. After they finished, Victoria helped clear the table while Maya began working on a drawing at the end of the counter. "She's taking to you," Marcus said quietly as they rinsed plates. "Fast." Victoria dried a dish, her movements careful. "Is that bad?" He shook his head. "No. Just unexpected. I didn't know if she'd let anyone in like that again. Not after we lost her mom." Victoria paused. "She talks about her a lot." "She should," Marcus said. Jessica was light. She lit up rooms, had this laugh that made strangers laugh back. Maya remembers every piece of her. Sometimes I worry she remembers her too clearly. Victoria looked over at the child humming to herself, coloring stars in pink and gold. There's no such thing as too clearly. Memories are all we've got when someone's gone. Marcus nodded, drying his hands on a dish towel. "You seem to get it." "I do," she said quietly. "I've lost people too. Not in the same way. But I've had my share of goodbye. Without warning." They stood there for a moment, quiet. "I'm sorry," he said. "So am I. Dad." He looked at her then, not as a stranger or a billionaire or the woman his daughter idolized, but as someone who'd walked through grief and was still learning how to come out the other side. "Maya's been asking about Mother's Day," he said. Victoria blinked. "That's months away." "Still, it's on her mind." Victoria's throat tightened. "What does she want?" "She doesn't say it outright, but I think she's hopeful that she won't have to sit alone during the class celebration this year." Victoria nodded slowly. "If you're comfortable with it when the time comes, I'd be honored." Marcus watched her for a moment longer, then nodded once. From the counter, Maya's voice rang out. "Hey, Daddy, Miss Victoria." They both turned. Maya held up a crayon drawing. It was the three of them, sitting at the dinner table. A big plate of spaghetti in the center, stars above their heads, and in uneven but deliberate letters, the words, "My dinner family." "Mace." Victoria felt a lump rise in her throat. Marcus smiled. "Looks like we've been claimed." "She doesn't do that often?" Victoria asked. "No," he said. "Not since Jessica. You're the first." Victoria looked at the drawing again, then at Maya, who was now pretending to eat imaginary spaghetti from the table edge with Mr. Beans. She whispered, "I won't let her down." Marcus didn't answer out loud, but the way he looked at her said everything. That night, as Victoria left and stepped back into the cold air of the city, the noise and chaos of Manhattan resumed around her. But inside her coat pocket, she carried something that felt weightier than any check or acquisition deal, a folded piece of crayon paper that said "My dinner family." And somehow, it felt like the most valuable thing she owned. By the 6th Saturday, it no longer felt like a favor. It felt like ritual. Victoria Sterling no longer arrived stiff with anxiety or checking her phone for work updates. She now arrived with 2 paper cups of cocoa, one with whipped cream for Maya, and one plain for Marcus, and an ease in her step that even the doorman at her penthouse had noticed. She was no longer just Miss Victoria. At some point somewhere between glitter stickers and bedtime lullabies, Maya had dropped the miss. Now, she was simply Victoria. Lo. And when Maya said it, it didn't sound like a billionaire's name. It sounded like family. That morning, Victoria stood outside the apartment door and heard the muffled sound of Maya's high-pitched singing. She knocked once. The door opened to Marcus, unshaven and in a faded Bowie t-shirt, holding a toothbrush in one hand and a sock in the other. "Emergency glitter glue incident," he said, half grinning. "She's covering Mr. Bean's wedding dress." Victoria held up the cocoa. "Brought peace offerings." He stepped aside to let her in. The apartment smelled like maple syrup and fabric softener. Maya, sitting cross-legged in the middle of the living room, was carefully applying rhinestones to a makeshift veil wrapped around Mr. Bean's fuzzy head. "Maya," Marcus called, "you've got company." The little girl's head popped up. "Victoria!" She scrambled to her feet, arms outstretched. Victoria crouched and caught her in a warm embrace. "I brought the cocoa. Whipped cream intact." Maya gasped. "You're a hero." As Victoria handed her the cup, Maya tugged her over to the craft-strewn battlefield. "Mr. Beans is getting married today," she announced solemnly. "To a cloud." "A cloud?" Victoria asked, suppressing a laugh. "Yup, because clouds are soft, and he needs someone who floats." Victoria nodded, completely serious. "Sounds like a stable relationship." Marcus walked back in, now socked and marginally more awake. We had pancakes. There's one left if you're brave. I'll take it, Victoria said, heading to the kitchen. I'm getting used to your culinary chaos. Over breakfast, Maya detailed the logistics of the wedding, while Marcus and Victoria exchanged glances over mugs of coffee. There was a comfort now. Unchoreographed. Easy. They spoke without needing to translate every look. As if the edges of their once separate lives were beginning to blur. After breakfast, they bundled up and headed to the park. Snow had fallen overnight, blanketing the city in soft white silence. Maya immediately started building a snow fort while Victoria and Marcus sat on a nearby bench, sipping fresh coffee and watching. Remember when this was just a one-time thing? Marcus asked, glancing sideways. I do, Victoria said. I also remember pretending I knew how to braid. She still wears that braid to school. Her teacher thinks you're a stylist on the side. Oh, Victoria smiled, but then her face turned thoughtful. Can I ask you something? Shoot. When Maya asked me to be her mom for a day, what made you say yes? Marcus looked out at his daughter, who was now giving a dramatic speech to a pine cone she called the Cloud Minister. He was quiet for a moment. She's a good judge of character, he said finally. Always has been. And when she came up to me that day, her eyes were different. Lighter, like she'd found something she didn't even know she was looking for. Victoria looked down at her gloves. I don't want to disappoint her, or you. You haven't, he said. In fact, he paused. I think she's starting to believe again. In good things. She nodded, her throat tight. Later that afternoon, back at the apartment, Victoria helped Maya hang up her snow-damp coat and boots. Marcus was in the kitchen, putting leftovers in containers. Can I ask you something? Maya whispered, pulling Victoria into her room. Of course. Maya closed the door behind them and walked over to her little nightstand. She opened the drawer and pulled out a notebook. On the cover was a drawing of stars and the word important. She flipped it open to a page that said in uneven block letters, People who feel like moms. Underneath, there was only one name, Victoria. I made a list, Maya said, but it only has you on it. Is that okay? Victoria's breath caught. That's more than okay. Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. You don't have to be my real mom, but you're the one who stayed. Victoria knelt down and cupped Maya's cheeks in her hands. I will always come when you need me. Always. They hugged for a long moment, the kind of hug that wasn't just for comfort but for confirmation. At the door, Marcus handed Victoria a paper bag with leftovers. She insisted you take the last pancake. Oh, royalty treatment, Victoria joked, trying to sound light. Marcus nodded, then added quietly, she's not the only one who looks forward to these Saturdays. Their eyes held. That night, Victoria sat in her penthouse staring at the city skyline. She still had the pancake, wrapped carefully in foil. Still had the glitter-covered drawing Maya had slipped into her coat pocket, Mr. Beans and the Cloud wedding. Still had the weight of something unspoken between her and Marcus. Something that wasn't obligation, wasn't charity, wasn't even just affection. It was belonging. For the first time in her life, Victoria Sterling didn't feel like she was orbiting the world from above. She was sitting at the table, laughing over burnt pancakes, being named in a child's important notebook. She was no longer just passing through. She was staying. On Monday morning, Victoria's phone buzzed as she stepped into the Sterling Technologies lobby. Her heels clicked sharply across the marble floor, the echo of control, purpose, precision. But the moment her eyes caught the screen, all of that confidence paused. Subject line, Victoria Sterling, mystery child in Central Park. A photo, blurry but unmistakable, had made its way into the gossip blogs. Victoria sitting on a snow-dusted bench, Maya curled against her side, their heads close, laughing. Beneath it, the Ice Queen has a heart. Sterling Saturdays with unknown child stir questions. She stopped walking, cold crawled up her spine. Ma'am? Her assistant, Janelle, appeared beside her, holding a folder. We're getting pings from PR. 3 outlets picked it up this morning. Entertainment sites mostly, but a few business columns are sniffing around. Want me to handle it? Victoria's grip tightened on her phone. No. I'll address it. Dine. She marched to the elevator, her mind a whirlpool of voices. Not Maya. Not Marcus. They didn't ask for this. Inside the boardroom, the air was unusually thick. Her executive team sat straighter than usual, eyes sharper. "Let's get ahead of it," one VP said. "If you're mentoring underprivileged children, we can spin this, maybe fold it into a social campaign." Victoria raised a hand, silencing the room. "I'm not spinning a child." Silence. She looked around, making eye contact with each executive. "Let me make this very clear. Her name is Maya Williams. She's 5. She's brilliant, and she's not a storyline or campaign. She's a little girl who asked for one day of kindness, and I said yes, that's all." One of the older board members, gray-haired and smooth-voiced, leaned forward. "Forgive me, Victoria, but the optics will reflect what I choose to stand for," she said, her voice unwavering. The room went still. Janelle, still by the door, cleared her throat and said quietly, "We're getting media inquiries. Should I draft a response?" "Yes," Victoria said. "Make it simple. No comment, no denial, just a statement." She walked to the whiteboard at the front of the room, picked up a marker, and wrote slowly, "Being kind to a child isn't a scandal. It's the minimum standard of humanity. VS." The boardroom was silent as she capped the marker and walked out. That evening, in a warm apartment uptown, Marcus was washing dishes when his phone buzzed. His breath caught when he saw the headline. He clicked. He read. His heart sank. "Daddy?" Maya asked, from the living room where she was coloring. "Yeah, baby? Is Victoria coming this Saturday too?" He turned slowly. "Of course. Why?" Maya shrugged. "Just wondering. Some kids in school said they saw her on the news." He dried his hands, walked over, and knelt beside her. "Did that upset you?" "No," she said. "They said she must be famous. I said she's just mine." He smiled, touched her cheek. "That's right. She's your Saturday girl." Still, after Maya went to bed, Marcus sat alone at the kitchen table, reading through comments online. Speculation, assumptions. One article even hinted she might be trying to adopt. Another called her desperate for redemption. They didn't know her. They didn't know Maya. And that made him angry. So he picked up his phone and typed a message. It took him 3 tries to get it right. "Marcus. Saw the article. You okay?" It took a few minutes. Then the screen lit up. "Victoria. Fine. Annoyed, but fine." He hesitated. "Marcus. You didn't have to stand up for her like that." "Victoria. Yes, I did. I made her a promise. You too." He stared at her reply for a while. Simple, clear, undeniable. He typed again. "Marcus. Dinner Friday? Before Saturday?" There was a pause. Then, "Victoria. Yes, let's do it." Friday night arrived like a balm. Marcus had cleaned the apartment twice over, trying not to overthink it. He wore a clean button-down and jeans, and tried not to sweat over the fact that he hadn't been on what might be considered a real date in almost 5 years. Victoria arrived on time, holding a bottle of wine and a small potted plant. "Peace, Lily," she said, handing it to him. "For peace, or dinner ambiance." He chuckled. "Well, it's the classiest thing in here now." Dinner was simple herb chicken, mashed potatoes, steamed vegetables. But they talked like it was a 5-star meal. About music, childhood, how Victoria once fell into a koi pond at age 7 during a school gala, how Marcus had written poetry in college but never showed anyone, about loneliness, about grief, and how somehow Maya had begun stitching their stories together without knowing it. At one point, Marcus looked across the table and said softly, "You know, you could have ignored her that day, walked away. You didn't owe us anything." Victoria met his eyes. "That's where you're wrong. I owed myself more than just a life of empty meetings and sterile silence. I just didn't know it, until she asked me to be her mom for a day." There was a pause. Then Marcus said, "Well, she hasn't stopped talking about you. I'm starting to think I'll need your approval before I get her a birthday present." Victoria laughed. Then quieter, she said, "And I haven't stopped thinking about the 2 of you either." Not for a day. As the night wound down, they stood by the door. He looked at her, really looked at her, and she didn't look like a billionaire anymore. She looked like a woman rediscovering what it meant to belong. "Thank you for dinner," she said softly. He hesitated. Victoria? Yeah? If this ever becomes more. If you ever decide you want more than Saturdays. She looked up, hopeful. I just want you to know, he said, voice quiet but certain. You already have a place here. At this table. In this home. She didn't speak. She just nodded, because her heart was already here anyway. Victoria sat at her desk early Thursday morning, her eyes glazing over a quarterly acquisition report that might as well have been written in ancient Greek. The numbers danced on the page, but her mind was elsewhere. Specifically, in a sunlit classroom with tiny plastic chairs and paper flower crafts taped to the walls. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. Got something for you. Maya wants to give it herself. Can we stop by the office? Her pulse kicked up slightly. Victoria. Of course. Tell her I'll be in my office until 5. After that, I'm yours. She tried to return to the report, but couldn't. Her mind kept floating back to last Friday night, Marcus setting the table with real silverware. The way he laughed when she told him about falling into that koi pond. The way his eyes lingered when she said goodbye. She hadn't dated in years. Not really. And yet nothing about last Friday felt like an effort. It felt real. At 4:02 p.m., her assistant Janelle poked her head in. You have some very important visitors. Victoria stood so fast her chair rolled back. The door opened. Maya rushed in like a gust of joy, holding something behind her back. Close your eyes, Maya demanded. Victoria obeyed instantly, smiling. No peeking. I wouldn't dare. Okay, now open. Victoria opened her eyes. Maya was holding a handmade invitation, folded carefully from glittery construction paper. The front had stars and stick figures, one tall, one medium, one small, all holding hands under a big sundae. Inside, in shaky crayon letters, you are invited to Mommy and Me Tea, Room 102, May 12. Please come be my special guest. Victoria stared at it for a long time. I told my teacher I didn't have a mom, Maya said, her voice suddenly unsure. But then I said, I kinda do now. I asked her if someone can be your, for now mom, even if she's not your, from before mom. She said yes. Victoria knelt slowly. Maya, you want me to go with you? Maya nodded, eyes wide. Only if you want to. Victoria felt something shift in her chest. Not break, not ache, just move. Like something that had been locked for years finally creaked open. I'd be honored. Maya jumped into her arms, and Victoria hugged her tight, trying not to let the tears win. But Marcus, standing in the doorway watching, caught the shimmer in her eyes. The day of the tea arrived with sunshine and unexpected nerves. Victoria had spent nearly an hour choosing what to wear, not too formal, not too casual. She finally settled on a pale lavender blouse, soft jeans, and a thin silver necklace Maya had given her with a plastic heart charm dangling from it. Maya called it, your bravery necklace. She arrived at the school 10 minutes early and waited outside the kindergarten classroom, her heart pounding louder than any boardroom entrance she'd ever made. Inside, the room was transformed into a fairy tale. Tiny tables were covered in lace cloths. Paper flowers in mason jars stood proudly next to mismatched plastic teacups. A CD player softly played lullaby instrumentals. When the door opened, Victoria stepped in, and the room froze. It wasn't just the teachers or the parents. It was the subtle shift, the side glances, the mothers exchanging hushed whispers. Some recognized her. Most didn't know what to do with the image of a billionaire kneeling next to a kindergartner, adjusting the girl's ponytail, smiling like nothing else in the world mattered. Maya ran over, holding 2 seats at the corner table. I saved us a table with a view, she whispered. A view of what? Victoria whispered back. The snack tray, obviously. Victoria laughed. They sipped apple juice out of plastic cups. They pretended it was tea. They ate animal crackers and used too many napkins. Maya introduced her to her classmates with pride. This is Victoria. She's my Saturday person, and also my star person. One of the teachers approached. Miss Sterling, it's an honor to have you here. Maya talks about you all the time. She's very special, Victoria replied. She told us about her mom, the teacher said gently, and also about you. She said you helped her heart feel less heavy. Victoria's throat tightened. She helped mine first. Ugh. Halfway through the event, the children were asked to draw pictures of their special person. Maya drew 3 figures again, Victoria, Maya, and a smiling stick figure labeled Mama Jess floating above them on a cloud. She handed it to Victoria. See? We're both still with me. Victoria felt a tear slip free. She would have loved this, Marcus said from behind her. She turned, surprised. I asked the school if I could come. Stand at the back. She wanted me here too. Victoria smiled. I'm glad you came. He looked at the drawing. She's getting good at making space for everyone she loves. I've never seen anything like her, Victoria whispered. I have, Marcus said. Once before. He didn't say Jessica's name. He didn't have to. Later that night, back at the apartment, Maya fell asleep in the hallway, curled around Mr. Bean's, wearing the bravery necklace herself now. She had insisted on wearing it to bed. Marcus and Victoria stood in the kitchen, the glow of the city reflecting off the window. You were good with the stares, Marcus said. Most people would have walked out. I've been stared at my whole life, she said. This time it didn't bother me, because it wasn't about me. He poured 2 glasses of wine. What was it about? She took a sip and looked toward the hallway where Maya slept. It was about showing up, even when it's hard, even when you're not sure you belong. Marcus leaned back against the counter. You belong. She looked at him. Really looked. You both keep saying that, she said, voice low, and I'm starting to believe it. They stood in silence for a while, sipping wine, listening to the quiet hum of the fridge and the steady rhythm of Maya's breathing. Finally, Marcus said, You're not just a Saturday person anymore. Victoria smiled, her heart full. I know. A week after the Mother's Day tea, Maya was still buzzing with joy. She brought her drawing everywhere, folded in her backpack, under her pillow, even taped to the refrigerator. She retold the story to anyone who would listen. How Victoria drank the best apple juice ever. How she wore the bravery necklace. How everyone clapped for us with their eyes, even if their mouths didn't. For Maya, that afternoon was magic. For Victoria, it was something deeper. A tipping point. A quiet whisper inside her chest had grown louder with each laugh, each question, each tiny hand reaching for hers without hesitation. It was no longer just about showing up. She was beginning to want to stay. That Friday evening, Victoria arrived early. The scent of cornbread filled the Williams apartment, and Maya was in her usual flurry of sparkle and noise, trying to get the table ready for Family Friday. Victoria set down a small bag on the counter. A little something, she said, handing it to Marcus. He raised an eyebrow. Should I be worried? Inside the bag was a set of recipe cards, handwritten, delicate cursive titled Mom's Kitchen, Southern Comfort Recipes. Marcus pulled one out, scanned the ingredients, and chuckled. Where did you get these? I called your Aunt Celeste, Victoria said. She was very generous, also very suspicious. She should be, he said with a grin. You've infiltrated the family without warning. Victoria shrugged. I bring cocoa and crafts. Resistance is futile. Dinner was loud and lovely. Maya insisted on giving everyone a roll. Victoria was the candle lighter. Marcus, the cornbread king. And she, of course, was Captain Sparkle. Midway through the meal, Maya set down her fork and looked at Victoria very seriously. Can I ask something important? Victoria wiped her mouth with a napkin. Of course. Maya leaned in, her voice just above a whisper. If I asked you something big, like really big, would you think about it before saying no? Victoria felt her heartbeat pause. I promise I'd think about it. Tell me. Maya took a breath. Can I call you Mom? The room went completely still. Victoria blinked. The air thinned around her. Even Marcus, who'd been halfway through pouring water, froze. I know you're not my before mom, Maya added quickly, words tumbling like marbles. But you're here. You come back. And when you hug me, it's the same. My heart says it's okay. Victoria couldn't speak. Not for a full 30 seconds. Then she knelt beside Maya's chair, brushing a curl from her face. Sweetheart, she whispered, I've never been more honored in my life. So, yes? Maya's voice was barely there. Yes, Victoria said, her voice shaking. You can call me Mom, any day, every day, forever, if you want. Maya threw her arms around her neck, giggling and crying all at once. From across the table, Marcus watched silently. His eyes were wet, his chest tight. The woman who had walked into their lives by chance had just accepted a title no one had dared say aloud until now. Later, after Maya had fallen asleep on the couch mid-movie, Mr. Beans tucked under one arm, Victoria and Marcus sat in the soft light of the living room. "She's been carrying that question for weeks," he said. "I know," Victoria said. "I felt it." And you're okay with this?" "I'm not just okay with it," she replied. "I want it. I want her." Marcus looked down, fidgeting with a coaster. "You know she's been through a lot. She doesn't just need someone on Saturdays." Victoria reached across the space and took his hand. "I don't want to be her Saturday person anymore," she said. "I want to be her everyday person." He looked at her, his eyes searching. "And what about me?" he asked quietly. "You walked into this for her. I get that. But where do I fit in this picture?" She didn't answer with words. She stood, walked to him, and kissed him, soft, sure, slow. When she pulled back, she whispered, "You're in every corner of it." He exhaled, the tension melting from his shoulders. "Okay. Okay?" He nodded. "Then I guess we figure this out. Together." She smiled. Family Friday just got real. They sat there in the quiet, holding hands, listening to the slow hum of the city outside and the occasional sleep mumble from Maya. And Victoria thought if someone had told her a few months ago that she'd be here, barefoot in a Harlem apartment, half a grilled cheese in hand, claiming motherhood and love in the same breath, she would have laughed. But now, she couldn't imagine life any other way. Spring had arrived in the city with a kind of slow grace, casting golden light across the skyline, softening the harshest corners. Trees bloomed along the sidewalks, children squealed at dog parks, and Maya had declared, quite officially, that she would only wear twirly dresses until further notice. In many ways, things felt beautifully simple. Mornings with pancakes, evenings with homework and bedtime stories. Saturdays were no longer marked on Victoria's calendar, they were understood. But life, especially the kind that builds itself on hope, has a way of circling back to what's unresolved. It began with a phone call. Victoria was in a meeting at Sterling Technologies when her phone buzzed. She rarely answered during business hours unless it was Marcus or Maya. This time, it was Marcus. She stepped out. "Everything okay?" she asked. There was a pause. "Yeah," Marcus said, his voice measured. "But I got something in the mail today. From Jessica's parents." Victoria leaned against the wall. "Her parents? They want to talk. Said they've been following the news, Maya's photos. The Mother's Day tea went viral in some circles." She stayed silent. "They've never visited," he continued. "Not once in 5 years. But now? Suddenly they're interested. Said they're concerned about Maya's emotional stability." Victoria could hear the tension in his voice, pulled tight like a string about to snap. "They're threatening to challenge custody." Victoria's breath caught. "What?" "They said if I'm letting strangers act as mother figures, then maybe I'm not prioritizing Maya's well-being." Strangers. That word hit her like a slap. "They think you're a threat," he said. "And maybe I invited this, letting our world get bigger." "You didn't do anything wrong, Marcus," Victoria said firmly. "Neither did Maya. And She stopped, then continued, her voice resolute. "I will not be erased from her life. Because someone doesn't understand love that wasn't pre-approved by bloodlines." He sighed. "I knew you'd say that." There was silence. Then she said, "What do we need to do?"